are super excited to have Marlena Gross Taylor on the My K-12 Career Show to share her story with our viewers and our listeners. Marlena, can you please share what's going on in your life and in your K-12 career right now?
Absolutely. So glad to be on your show, my friend. Thank you for having me. Really means a lot. It's been a while. It's
Sure.
been a while. We've had many adventures between the time we last talked. And I think your podcast was one of the first that I was ever on.
Wow. Okay.
So you expanded my mind about that. So
Awesome.
want to give you some flowers there.
Right.
So right now I live out west. I live in Wyoming and right at the border in Cheyenne near Colorado. And I work now in Colorado. So I have a very short commute there and work as a chief equity and academic officer for the school district just across the border. And it is very interesting work, especially doing this post-pandemic when it was pre-pandemic when I first came out to Colorado from Tennessee as my kids were graduating college. And so that was a huge jump for me to come out to Colorado.
Where are you coming from?
I was coming from Nashville. So that's where we were for probably the longest, family, the longest. And I wanted to make sure my kids graduated high school because they played sports and all the things. And they did. And even after that, I was totally content to being in Nashville or depending on where they went to college, maybe moving a little bit closer to them depending on where they went. And so as they made their pathway on the East Coast for college, definitely set up shop there because there's no way this mom was going to be that far from her kids, especially when one was playing football for college. So I wanted to make sure that I could make all those games and not have to do so like being in hotels. But it was just an interesting time to be a mom of now older kids in college, having a career that I spanned many states from moves with my previous husband when his job would move us. And then going to Colorado for me and taking an opportunity for me there. And I've just learned so much. I've learned so much. So it is now home. And my kids love coming out here to visit out in the mountains. And it's just been an amazing ride.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I'm geographically challenged. So you live in Wyoming.
Yes.
And you work in Colorado. So what is the distance between the city you live in Wyoming and the city you work in Colorado?
Yeah, so it's just a little over 30 miles. Okay. So I did not realize how close they were. And I think that's a really important piece because all of our moves prior and when I was married previously were in the Southeast because I wanted to avoid cold weather because my ex and I both are from Louisiana. So I wanted to avoid all of the cold weather, which is kind of funny that I live where I live now.
Sure.
But it wasn't until, I moved out here that I was like, gosh, this is like a whole different world in many ways. And I didn't realize the geography of it. Yeah. So, when I met my new husband and he's from Wyoming, and I thought like, oh my gosh, that's such a long drive you're making. Like, oh my gosh, how far is Wyoming? And he just laughed. Like, it's literally like an hour if you're in Denver proper, hour and a half hold traffic, right? Like from Denver, I was like, really?
Wow.
So I've had a chance to explore northern Colorado. And so it's only about 40-minute drive with traffic. I work in the same city, Fort Collins, Colorado, where Colorado State University is.
Okay.
So that is a college town. Fort Collins is a college town. And it's just amazing. I just love it. I do love it. And I'll tell you this one quick thing, Joseph, is that during COVID, first I went back to Annapolis because my kids were home for college and I had a place there. And I remember we were just cleaning out some things and I came across all of my letters of college offers, whether it was academic and primarily academic, but there had some athletic for track and for volleyball.
Okay.
And it's so funny because I had letter after letter that I kept in a huge shoebox, right? It was actually 2 shoeboxes full from Colorado State.
Wow.
Colorado University, from Jennifer University. Like I had all these letters from Colorado that at the time when I was a high schooler myself, I was like, oh my gosh, no, I'll never go there. And they were just And I just think it's so funny because I like to think that being a preacher's kid and all,
Yeah.
that the Lord was just giving me a hint of what was to come.
Oh, that's
That
nice. That's not.
several. So it kind of gave me chills. And I remember when we were able to come back to school after the pandemic had, kind of, I won't say leveled out, but we were going back to school in person. And I remember bringing a couple of those letters to my colleagues at that time, district, and they were just kind of blown away. And I was like, sometimes you never know, like we never know what we're going to do. It's really about being prepared so we can take advantage of whatever opportunities that might come our way. But there are times where we get little glimpses of what our future might be. Sure. And so looking back, that was like a little glimpse of what my future would be. So
beautiful.
It's perfect that I'm here because I'm supposed to be here.
100%.
I just already did, right? But I'm ready now, and I get to cheer for my LSU Tigers.
100%. 100%. Full disclosure, I'm originally from Kansas City, but I grew up in Baton Rouge. So I definitely share that love and passion for LSU with you. I definitely, if they cut me, I bleed the purple and gold.
Yes.
100%. So yeah, full disclosure, you also came on my show when I had a podcast, and I remember that you were a principal. So you've moved up a lot. So you are working district level positions. Can you kind of share some of the positions you worked in?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a principal when we met in Williamson County Schools in Tennessee. So for those that are listening and familiar with Nashville, just below Nashville proper, where all your country music folks live, all that, right?
Yeah.
So my kids were in school there. I was principal there for a fair amount of time, and even went into district level work in the neighboring district just further south in Williamson County, Murray County, and I really enjoyed that. I started off the director of secondary schools and executive director of secondary schools, but in between being a principal and then going back to district office, I actually needed a break. And I think this is super important, especially now, because you can't feel guilty about needing a break.
Sure.
In education with the work that we do, no matter what school you teach in or lead in, what configuration, it really doesn't matter. Like, it is important to take time for ourselves. And so when I was a principal, when we met, as my kids went to high school, I realized that I had missed really almost all of their childhood when it came to like being able to be involved in school. Of course, I would make their events, their music events, their theater events, and of course their sports events. But, I never had the opportunity to really volunteer in their school. I never had the opportunity to do more than just be the football mom for their grade levels, respectively. So that was really important to me. So after my youngest finished middle school, it really hit me that, okay, I have to do something different and I need a little break to do that. And I feel like that I deserve it. Yeah. And I'll never forget when I left Williamson County, and probably within the first week of being home, and I remember taking the boys out. We all went out to eat as a family, and my boys were like, "Mom, like, this is the first time you've been like really present." And so it kind of made me like, what? Like, I'm always here. Like, I try my best, I mean, just about everything. And they go on to tell me, and they were literally going into 9th and 10th grade at that time. You're always running. You're always trying to be here. But like, this is the first time, like, you are really here. You don't look stressed. I was hiding it well. Like, I didn't have a horrible situation by any means, right? Sure. I was like, I love my job. I love what I did. I just hate missing my kids. Sure. And it was then that I realized that for me, it was really hard to be a good leader and a good mom to my kids as they were still, in school, because oftentimes we pull back from kids as they get older when they really need us to push in more, just in a very different way.
Very true.
So that was the in-between where I really started EduGladiators. I really built that out to a very successful education company of consulting and publishing, and super proud of that work. And then when I felt like I had enough, then you want to get back in. And that's when I decided to try district leadership, because if I didn't like it, I still had my company. Absolutely. So I still could do that and was doing well with that. So I went in, I had some of that district leadership experience, and then was recruited to come out to Colorado shortly after that to be chief academic officer. And even now, my current position, chief equity and academic officer, it's just me so much opportunities to just continue to learn and grow. I will say in between that time, I was over literacy for the state of Wyoming.
Oh,
So
wow.
that was really great to have some state level things. And because I've never worked for the state, so I learned a lot there.
Right.
But I do feel like K-12, as far as like which area of education outside of just consulting, because I still have Gladiators, I'll never leave.
Good.
I
I
go.
was going to ask that. So tell me more about how you're navigating working as a district level leader, but at the same time continuing to grow your company.
Yeah, that's a great question, because one thing I know for a fact is that with COVID, it really pushed a lot of people to, and me included, to really change our mindset and even our business model for things, right?
Mhm.
So primarily when I started Gladiators, it started as a Twitter chat years ago now, I should say, gosh, 8 years ago now.
Wow.
Started as a Twitter chat. And prior to the recent changes that Twitter has gone through with the pandemic, people were even more involved being online and connecting, yes, but the in-person events, which was a significant part of my business model of speaking at in-person events, whether it was me or whether it was other folks, part of my core warriors, that was a significant part. And that was no more because we couldn't meet in person for conferences.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so we had that. I've always been really good at social media and had a team that we always had a small group of clients of education clients that we would help them jumpstart their social media branding, whether it was all the way from logos to website, whatever. So with COVID happening, we already had a few people that we would manage monthly and a few schools, that would manage monthly, their social media. So helping them come up with their content, we would post it, all the things. And that was really fun. But once COVID hit and I needed to take some time, as most people did, to just deal with COVID and a lot of loss in personal family around that, it really pushed me to rethink my business model because there were no more conferences. I still had a few that did virtual, but it wasn't to the same level, right? We had no idea how long COVID was going to go on and when we'd be back. And so as people started being more online, we actually started getting more requests and this was not something we really advertised that we did a lot. It was the social media marketing piece, but we started getting a lot of requests from our team, from me personally. Like my DMs were really filled with people asking like, hey, can you show me how you got started at being online and all of these different pieces? And so what we ended up expanding was a digital services arm of Gladiators. And so where I thought like the publishing piece, which we still have books and we're very proud of them, that was awesome. And I just knew like this would be like what would be really impactful.
Right.
I found that it's the digital services because teachers and leaders aren't taught how to be marketers.
That's good. Awesome. So do you have a team that works with you to continue that going,
I do. I have a team, a pretty powerful team, a small and mighty team. Many of them have been with me from the start doing these things, and we've had to expand and or change team members because COVID affected them too.
Sure.
And more so than just their kids now being home from school when none of the world was in person, but even past that, right? Like people's priorities like really crystallized during COVID, and there's nothing wrong with that. So we have a great team that keeps it going because of course my days are long. And even though this district is a third of the size or half the size of my previous district in Colorado, the support systems and things like that aren't scaled yet. So it requires a lot more time because it's just not scaled yet. So,
well, even in your title, you have more hats, right? Like, I mean, yeah, not just chief academic officer, you over equity as well. So, yeah,
right. And I will say that in my current role compared to when I was in my previous district, it's not just professional development and curriculum. I have student services, which is our mental health team. So that's something different that I never experienced before until I moved to Colorado, to have a whole department just about mental health.
Yeah.
So I have a very large mental health team, and I have directors of each of these. I have special education is under my umbrella.
Oh, okay.
Her role. our CTE, our career and innovation, of course, curriculum, professional development, also our language, culture, and equity. So our ELL or EOD department is under my umbrella. And then lastly, early childhood.
Oh, wow.
And so I could name a huge project that each of those departments are overseeing or working through. Some of it's state directed because of new state legislation. And so it's just longer days. So I'm figuring out the balance, not so much so I can necessarily do more in Edu Gladiators, but just so I can like have a work day that I can live with. Because one thing I'll never do as long as I live is ever go back to where I'm choosing to be a better leader in education over being a better mother and a better partner.
I get it. That's real. Yeah, mental health is a real thing. And I think that the pandemic really forced us to reevaluate what's important in our lives. And I know it did for me. And so you're right. Like you had to have that work-life balance. And it always should, in my opinion, be tilted toward your own personal health and what you have going on in your personal life. Because I always say that these jobs that we have are what we do, not what we are. Right. And so super important to remember that because, but I can also see where you're on right now is 100% preparing you to be a superintendent one day. So
yes, it is. And I will never do that. That is one thing I know you should never say never.
Never say never. If you want to make God smile, tell him you're wrong.
I know. And he smiles now. I live in Wyoming and all of the cold weather right now. But that is actually not a goal of mine. That is not, never has been. What I always wanted to do, and honestly, the reason why I even wanted to go into district leadership in Tennessee was as I started speaking and consulting and being brought in by districts to help them, I wanted to make sure I understood like what district office folks had to go through and kind of what their parameters were in moving great things along. And that's what really prompted me to do that.
Okay.
So being a superintendent is not my goal, and it never was. Sure. So I can truly say, like, I'm not certified to be a superintendent. In many states, you have to have an additional certification or go through certain programs. That is not my goal. My goal is to be better at supporting people, and no matter who those people are. So as I continue, now that we're back in person, continue to go back to speaking at events and what have you, or going into districts to help them with whatever it is that they need help with, that it just makes me more marketable to do that, as well as being able to talk directly at different levels. So if it's a teacher that I'm doing, not that I do very many of these now myself, but I certainly can. So if it's a teacher that needs help, I want to be able to walk through with that teacher just as easily as I can the principal, as easily as I can the director or the superintendent or assistant superintendent.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, there's a lot of people that are probably watching us right now that aspire to work at the district level. What would you say to assistant principals that are watching us right now about how they should go about charting their path to the district level?
Yeah, so that's a great question because we don't talk about this. We don't talk about like what are the career pathways in education outside of teacher to maybe dean now, because that's a big position nowadays, to assistant principal to principal. And you might be an instructional coach or an ed tech coach if your district has that. But if you're wanting to figure out how to get to the district level, it's really important to figure out what you want to do and what impact you want to have.
Sure.
Because it's really easy to kind of dig into the false narrative. The higher I go, then I can do more things or have more schools do whatever, which is true.
Sure.
However, you have to be a good marketer because you have to tell the why and get buy-in much more now than ever before, I would say, when you're trying to move the needle and whatever that is, right? Like whether it's equity or whether it's curriculum, whatever it might be. And so if you're wanting to get to the district leadership, the first thing I would say is, number one, find out what's required. So there are certain district positions that require an administrator's license. And if you are, say, an instructional coach or a reading specialist, if you're at the school level, you may not have that. So I would encourage you to get that because most positions at the district level require that. Also, after you find out what the requirements are, who is doing what you think you want to do at the district level? Figure out who that is. If you don't know that person, make a new friend. Your teachers, we know how to do that. And ask to pick their brain. Can you job shadow with them? And can they help you be your mentor and talk to you about their journey in that district to do that? So you find out what's required, make sure you have, or you're working on those requirements if it requires an administrator's license or a master's degree. And then you find the person that is doing that currently in your district and make friends, shadow them, figure out what it is. And then the last thing I would say is, because you just found the person that's doing what you want to do, you have to get your mindset around, am I willing to leave my district to go do the thing?
Wow.
And I guarantee you that in most cases, if you want to come back, you can, but you have to be willing to leave.
Okay.
And that is the concept that most people don't have in education, because most educators stay in the same district, and there's nothing wrong with that, from the start of their career, usually to the end of their career.
Right.
And so if you have the qualifications, you've mentored, you've job shadowed, you feel good, talk to the person that's doing the thing you want to do. A lot of times we have people that are discontent because they're like, gosh, well, this person's not going to leave, or they have, 10 years to retirement. So you have to have a mindset of, are you willing to drive, if it's drivable for you, to a neighboring district or move? Are you willing to do that, to do the thing?
That's huge. That's huge. And a lot of people are willing to do it, right? But they need to count the costs beforehand, right? Like, you can't start down this path and then these opportunities come up and you're like, oh, but I'm happy where I'm at. Well, have to think about that beforehand. But I like what you said too about the whole networking piece. I think sometimes people discount that. They just focus laser-like on the requirements, which we all get it. Anybody that even gets an interview, we know is qualified, but sometimes it's not what you know as much as who you know. And so those relationships are really important. So thank you for sharing that. Now, as a part of your company, do you provide mentoring services for leaders in that regard?
Yeah, it's a great question. We always had, again, it's really more folks that I've met over the years and that are really part of my tight PLN that I have, that we will do some career coaching with. One of the things that let me go back, Joe, just really quickly, is that the reason why I know what I know about marketing is because of my ex-husband. He's in marketing. That's what moved us around all these states when we were married. And I also invested in myself and took additional courses before. So much of it is free now, but it wasn't then.
Sure.
I invested in myself, took courses so I could actually know more about what I'm talking about and not rely on him to give me like a crash course in marketing 101,
Sure.
So that's how I know what I know around that. But what I would say is when we're talking about career coaching and talking about marketing, I also learned about running a business because I had my own, but also scaling the business. So when you're doing career coaching, that's normally a one-to-one model.
Sure.
Right? A B2C, business to consumer model. And there's nothing wrong with that. But in order to expand that, then that is something that I would have to have an entire team of coaches, and I would have to also ensure the level of coaching for the team that could be coaching other people.
Sure.
So one of the pieces that I learned as I invested in myself is like, what kind of business model do I want? And I knew that I was already kind of moving towards this, but really talking about, if I personally want to do career coaching or have a team, it would have to be a group coaching model or a mastermind of some sort.
Okay.
Or do I want to create a course about how do you find your next? So how do I have those courses that are evergreen in the sense of they're pre-recorded, or they have workbooks that, folks work through, and we have a community created around it where it's more of a Q&A session that I might hold through the week around that, right?
Yeah.
So there are people that do that, and they do very well.
Okay.
That would be what I would have to do if I wanted to expand the career. But what I found is the marketing piece is what it is most requested.
Wow.
And in order to scale it, do I always want to continue being a done for you service with EduGladiators, or is it more of a self-paced and a group coaching model, if you will, of marketing,
Right.
branding, putting yourself on social media, using content marketing and SEO, no matter what platform you might be on. We have a lot of teachers that sell on TPT, and they've always done it, but
Yeah. Yeah.
teachers want to do it, and so they never had an opportunity to do it, or they had it, but they didn't go anywhere because they don't know how to market.
Mm.
So during the pandemic, we kind of experimented with that in my team. And so that is the direction that we're going in now, that we're super excited about, is really offering, a tiered service approach. So still B2C around self-paced, around group coaching, and around more of a mastermind instead of a done for you service. So we completed our contracts and different things with maybe folks that we have managed their social media, schools that we had managed their social media, and are flipping them to that model of either that self-paced or that group coaching model, if they're interested in having their staff do that, right? And providing those templates around that, and even toying around with the membership. So really excited. That's where we are right now.
Oh, yeah. This sounds like a lot of great stuff that you're doing with your company. I'm excited to see how that all pans out. Well, Marlena, I want to thank you so much for coming back on my show to share your story, your journey. It's an amazing journey and it's an amazing story. But before you leave, would you please leave us with some parting words of wisdom? Tell us how we can connect with you, and then we'll say goodbye.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. So as far as the parting words is, if we've learned nothing else, especially because of the pandemic, is trust in yourself. Whatever it is that you want to do, trust in yourself to do that. So if it's, yes, I'm staying in the classroom, or I'm staying in my school or in my district, if that's what you are still passionate about and want to do that.
Sure.
If you're wanting to do something else, do that. Do that. And trust that what you know, most people don't know what you know. And if you're really good at, it could be as simple as one of my friends, she started a writing course on how to teach writing and frameworks for writing. And she's really good at it. And oh my gosh, she has a 6-figure business as well.
That's awesome.
Around that. So really think about, what do you have that you know to do if you're not wanting to stay in the classroom, if you're not wanting to stay in the district? What is it that you know that could solve a problem?
I love it.
For someone else that's an educator.
Yeah.
And then go do that.
Love it.
Go do that. But don't doubt yourself. Trust yourself. Go do it and try. Just like we talk about to our students to have a growth mindset and don't be afraid of failing, we have to model that. And so this is our time to do that, whatever it is you're wanting to do.
Love it.
So that's my words of wisdom, is go do it. And even if it's hard, do it anyway.
Yeah, I love it. Love it.
Right?
Yeah. So how can we connect with you?
Yeah, so you can find me on social media, of course. You can literally just Google Marlena Gross Taylor, but it's M Gross Taylor on all of my handles, and or EduGladiators. So you'll see us going through our update or refresh of our branding for EduGladiators as we move more towards, we're still just undecided on the membership, but I'm feeling really good about that's probably what we'll also add to our repertoire. But go to edugladiators.com.
Okay.
Check out what we have there. Check out all of the pieces that we have there to help you, because it is changing and we have a time frame for all of this work to be completed in February. So we're really excited about that.
Awesome. Once again, I want to thank you for coming on the show. It's so evident that you have been a real blessing to the K-12 community and all the places that you've been and all the places that you work. And I know, as that old saying goes, God is definitely not through with you yet. So keep doing what you're doing, and we definitely wish you all the best.
Thank you. Same to you.
Thank you, Mark.